The light climbs higher. The frost withdraws like a tide satisfied with its work. Mimir's well closes its eye, whispering, "Until again." Ratatoskr begins his gossip anew, but today his words fall only upward, and the air forgives him instantly. The ravens lift into the day and circle once, twice, thrice, not for omen but for joy. Yggdrasil breathes. Its roots settle deeper into kindness. Its crown unfolds toward the widening blue. And all across the 9 worlds, the dream continues but with open eyes. You have walked through the dream of the world tree, through its roots and crown, its silence and song. May your own sleep find that same patience, and your waking carry the same light. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth. If the story has gentled your heart, let it rest here a while longer. Breathe once more, and drift into your own quiet forest. The Dream of Yggdrasil Part 1. The Whisper Beneath the Roots. There is a silence older than winter, a hush pressed deep into the soil where light does not reach. Beneath the ice crack and the wolf song, beneath the iron ring of night, there are roots, roots that drink from wells older than gods, roots that remember fires no longer burning, names no longer spoken. They belong to Yggdrasil, the ash whose crown stitches the sky, and whose shadow gathers 9 worlds into one breath. His trunk holds the memory of thunder. His bark carries the news of ravens. Its leaves write long green psalms to summer, then fold them carefully into sleep. But this is not a night of wind and leaf. This is the hour when even storms grow thoughtful. The hour when a tree that never sleeps lets its eyelids fall. Beneath the roots, the earth is not merely earth. It is a library of heartbeat and stone. It is 1,000 winters set gently one atop another, weighing nothing, speaking softly. Here lies Mimir's well, a dark mirror that keeps what the world forgets. Here runs the cold river of Nidhogg's patience, where an ancient dragon chews at the farthest root, and counts time with teeth. Listen. What you hear at first is not a sound but a pressure. The way snow presses on a roof without falling. The way sleep approaches before it understands your name. Then faint, slow, the pressure changes. Something vast exhales. A root quivers. The soil loosens, as if the world is unclenching a hand. Yggdrasil is dreaming. In the dream, night is not an enemy. It is a cloak laid over loudness, a friendly weight across the chest. The first vision rises like breath from a sleeping body. A lightless forest, endless, kind, where each tree stands at attention, listening to the one who gives them law. The dream walks with feet of moss. It moves without moving the way thought does, finding you no matter where you lie. It arrives at a clearing where there is no clearing, only the idea of space slowly widening. In that space a voice gathers, quiet, tremoring, a drum made of time itself, says nothing at first. It has been speaking for millennia. It does not rush. Instead, it lets the silence settle, the way a mother smooths blankets, before telling a child where stars come from. When the voice finally speaks, the words are bark and sap, evening and frost. They arrive as the picture of a raven's wing, unfolding against cold light. They arrive as the taste of iron, on a tongue that has told truth. Little ones, the voice says, and you realize, it does not mean you. It means everything. Little ones, I carry you. The clearing darkens to a deep blue hush. Overhead, invisible branches arch like ribs. Between those ribs is a sky so still that the stars appear to be thinking. From the far side of the roots, where cold is denser than stone, something shifts, a body of hunger rolling in a bed of ages. Nidhogg, patient gnawer, slides his head along the root and listens. His teeth pause. He does not stop because he loves. He stops because the dream holds him. Even ruin has a mother, and tonight she sings. Yggdrasil dreams of rivers, of Joel with its ice-bright skin, of Kormt and Kurlog steaming where warriors bathe, of hidden streams that never see daylight, but carry gossip between worlds. Water travels upward in the dream, not down, rising in slender silver ropes through the trunk, until it becomes fog, and the fog becomes breath, and the breath becomes a raven. Hugin lifts from the crown with a thought. Munin follows, carrying yesterday in his beak. They do not fly through air but through memory, gliding along the old paths, where names leave footprints. They cross into a hall where fire speaks low, and a one-eyed god sits with his cup left untouched. The god does not lift his head. He does not need to. Memory lands on his shoulders like familiar weight, and in sleep he smiles. The dream shifts again. Now it runs down instead of up, flowing along a route so wide that mountains could balance upon it like toys. Through the wood the dream enters a buried hall, and there, in the gentle heat of the deep, something enormous breathes in rhythm with the tree. It is the world itself, clothing itself in quiet. Listen closer. There, almost lost beneath the heart murmur, is the faintest rasp, tooth upon root, root upon tooth. Not malice, ritual. Nidhogg keeps the measure, the tree keeps the time. Between them, eternity learns to rock a cradle. In that rocking, stories loosen. They shake free like snow from a high branch. Some are brittle war names, wound names, oaths that burned the tongue that spoke them. They fall, settle, and sleep. Others are soft, child laughter braided with wolf fur. Bread steam in a thin house, a mother's breath cooling a fevered brow. The tree keeps them all. The tree does not judge. It holds. Above, where frost draws rune and riddle across bark, sap rises with the slow confidence of morning. Each ring of the trunk hums a separate note. Long, low content. Together they make a chord that never ends. It is the sound of a roof that will not leak, of a door that opens without creak, of a chair warm with the shape of a returning body. It is the sound of home. You may think such dreaming would be loud. It is not. It is quieter than a hand upon a horse's neck, then the pause before an apology, then the moment a candle decides to gutter. Quiet enough that a squirrel can cross a god, from antler to eyebrow, pausing only to hide his mischief in a knot. Ratatoskr is awake, of course. Sleep bores him. He takes messages up and down the trunk, sweetens insults, salts compliments, and always arrives with crumbs on his whiskers. Tonight even he is gentled. He listens to the root song, tail flicking in the rhythm old as frost, and for once carries only kindness. Rest, great root, he whispers downward. Rest, clear crown, he whispers upward. Between them he grins and eats something he will deny later. The dream deepens. Beneath the deepest root, beneath old sorrow and older pride, is a pool that never freezes. It is small and black and absolute. Mimir's eye opens in it, not to look but to be looked through. You feel the gaze move over you, like a heavy cloth warmed by embers. It does not pry. It simply recognizes. The pool says nothing, and in its nothing is a permission. You may lay down what you carry. The tree will keep it, the weight and the worth, and you will rise lighter. So you do. You let fall the iron you have been polishing in your chest. You set down the names that never softened. You let the old griefs unhook their claws. They sink without sound. The water does not judge. It drinks. Yggdrasil's roots draw a little of that black wisdom upward, braiding it into wood, into leaf, so that even morning will taste of mercy. Far away where the sea chews stone, and long ships dream of gull wings, a child wakes and does not know why. He rolls in the straw and finds his mother's palm. Her hand is a harbor. He sleeps again. Somewhere else, a warrior forgets a scar. Somewhere else, a widow finds her breath matching a distant rhythm, and does not feel as alone. The tree is dreaming them, too. The tree dreams everything it carries, which is everything that breathes. The dream rounds its shoulders and turns its face to dawn. Not yet to wake, only to notice the place where waking will come. Frost loosens its grip on grass. A gray heron lifts one leg and reconsiders the other. The world takes a quieter breath, as if not to disturb the sleeper that keeps it steady. Yggdrasil does not speak as gods do. It makes no boasts, swears no oaths. Its language is cohesion. What it says tonight is simple. Hold fast. Be kind. Stay. It says it to mountains until they soften, and to rivers until they listen to their beds. It says it to the sky until the aurora hangs her silks, without tearing them. It says it to you, until your hands forget the shape of fists, and learn again the eloquence of open palms. Nidhogg settles his jaw against the root, not biting now but leaning like a tired dog against a door. He sighs. The sigh is a cavern of winter yielding to spring. Overhead, the ravens tuck their heads beneath their wings, and dream of a god who traded an eye for a sip, and found the world more beautiful for the lack. Ratatoskr curls into the crook of a branch, and pretends he is a pinecone. Even the wind, which has opinions about everything, sits down and listens like a child who has been noticed. The tree's last thought before the dream thins is old and bright, that every world is a ring around a quieter ring, and at the center is not a secret but a kindness, cool as a well and steady as a root. The soil tightens, just enough. A root stills. The pressure changes back. The way a tide returns to what it knows. Dawn lays a hand on the bark, not to wake, only to reassure. Above the crown, the sky brightens by one patient shade. Far below, the well closes its eye. Between them, in the vast body that connects all rooms, a hush like soft snow continues. You are inside it now. You are held. High above the roots where old wisdom sleeps, the crown of Yggdrasil rests against the night like a continent of green stars. Its leaves, thousands upon thousands, turn their faces to the cold sky and loosen the light they gathered in brighter seasons. In the world trees sleep, each leaf becomes a dreamer, and each dream a soft page flipped by the breath of the north. Listen closely. Every leaf carries a story it has overheard. Hushed names spoken by travelers. Lullabies sung to dust. Secrets surrendered to wind out of love, or weakness, or mercy. The leaves do not judge. They shelter and they remember. Tonight they remember the 9 realms at once. Their edges stitched together by veins of light. They shine not with fire but with frost, and through them the world tree dreams upward. A hush travels along the boughs, like a cat walking along rafters. The first dreaming begins in the highest branches, where the air is thin and the stars lean near. The leaves dream of Scar, gold-sober halls and watchful ravens, a bridge that glows like dawn. They dream a one-eyed god sitting silent beside an untouched cup, the skin around his missing sight more tender than legend admits. They dream a woman whose patience is a hearth, her gaze the warm place where broken spears become plow handles. They dream of children who are not children, playing at thunder in their sleep, laughing at lightning's shy grin through cloud. The dream slides to Vanaheimr, a softer land of fruit-bent branches and rivers that bargain kindly. Here, seers lay their ears to roots and learn the weather of souls. A leaf hears a woman say to the soil, "Grow where grief has fallen," and grief grows into herbs that heal the chest, into apples that taste of names finally forgiven. To the east, Jotunheimr, mountains studying their reflection. In frozen lakes, giants whose hands are careful with small flames. A leaf falls into a giant's palm like a tiny green ship. He does not crush it. He holds it as if it were a bird he has decided not to eat. Under his thumb, the leaf warms, and for a moment his memory fills with summers that never visited him. He sets the leaf back on the wind gently, almost embarrassed to hope. The dream travels to Alfheimr, pale with moon, silver grasses brushing the ankles of those who move too lightly to see. A child follows fireflies across a stream and forgets to worry. A leaf, lodged in her hair, hums a thin tune until her breath matches it. "Don't be afraid of quiet," the tune says. Quiet is a teacher with soft hands. Downward the dream pours, a rain of thought through wood. To Migr, where fires gutter, bread cools on borrowed plates, and doors creak with news. A fisherman, awake too late, stands by a black river, and apologizes to it for taking more than he needed when he was young. He promises to love his sons well enough, that they will not feed themselves with stone. Overhead, the leaves listen without judgment, and offer their shade to the apology's small flame. Below the visible world, the dream threads through Svartalfheimr, the realm of smoky halls and clever hands. Dwarves speak in iron, place vowels inside the bellies of anvils, and persuade or to remember stars. A leaf dries on a workbench and curls into the shape of a hook. A smith sees it, smiles, and makes a clasp for a widow's cloak. When she fastens it in winter, the wind changes its mind. Niflheimr, cold and older than sorrow. Fogs drift like slow herds, and distances measure themselves. A leaf crystallizes into frost and becomes a mirror to the night. In it, an old man sees his younger face and neither envies nor mourns. He breathes, and the frost blooms inward like a flower learning modesty. Muspelheimer answers from the far horizon, a low red hum, a heat that does not destroy when it is imagined. By a sleeping tree, sparks rise but gently. They take the shapes of runes. For warmth, for welcome, for bread shared fairly. Leaves along the southern boughs glow from within. No smoke, no ash, only the memory of hearths that never refused a traveler. Hell where endings are folded and kept with care. It is not a punishment tonight. It is a pantry of quiet. Here a mother whispers the true name of her child. For the first time since he left, and a leaf falls upon her hand, soft as forgiveness. She keeps the leaf between pages. She can no longer read, and sleeps without the old stone on her chest. So the dreaming leaves travel, not as birds moving through weather, but as weather moving through birds. Each leaf hears and holds, and the world tree's breath rises slow as winter bread. Sometimes the leaves speak to one another, vein to vein, in a language that is only pressure and patience. They share what they keep, the secret laugh that healed a marriage, the clean fracture of a lie confessed, the unborn song of a river waiting under ice. They do not gossip. They knit. Along a middle bough, the squirrel Ratatosker performs with priestly dignity, the rare art of doing nothing. Tail wrapped about his face, he naps in full view, one eye cracked to see who is impressed. Beneath him 2 leaves discuss the ethics of mischief, and decide it depends on whether breakfast was shared. Somewhere above, a raven pretends not to listen, and then adjusts his wing to a more philosophical angle. The dream brightens like a lantern turned low. Sap rises ever so slightly, and the leaves begin to hum. It is not a tune. It is a kindness wearing sound. A newborn turns in sleep, his fingers opening. A widow smiles at no one. A dog rests its head on a threshold and forgives the day. The world tree is not waking, but a thought, is becoming a sentence in the language of green. Then, like snow deciding to fall, a dream within the dream begins. The leaves imagine themselves as boats. They slip their stems without tearing and launch on night's black water. They carry fishermen who are suddenly brave but gentle. They carry children who remember to feed their small fires. They carry old warriors whose shields finally put their old songs down. Wherever a leaf boat floats, the water calms. Wherever it lands, someone's breath lengthens. The boats do not keep their passengers. They deliver them to mornings that fit. A wind arrives that is more teacher than weather. It steps through the crown in stockinged feet, touching each leaf as a mother checks each room before sleep. With every touch another memory loosens. A good goodbye, a fair trade, a promise kept long after the witness died. The leaves release what is ready to be released, and tighten around what is not, and the wind approves. Nothing is forced. Nothing is refused. This is the discipline of trees. In a high fork where frost writes in thin silver, a cluster of leaves begins to ring like small bells. The sound is so soft that even silence must lean close. It rings for those who believed they were overlooked, for those whose labor hid itself inside other people's comfort. It rings for a name that was never said aloud with sweetness. The world tree hears and shifts one finger's width inward, a movement no god notices, but every sparrow trusts. Far along the western limbs, moonlight drapes itself like wool. The leaves their dream of houses that do not lock, of tables where bread is cut wider than custom. A stranger knocks at such a house and is given the good cup, without anyone checking if he is deserving. When he leaves, he is less a stranger, and some rule that had been ruling the night forgets how to stand. The dream darkens, not with fear but with deeper rest. Stars withdraw enough to make room for breathing. You can hear it now, the shared breath of leaves, a tide moving through green lungs. It rolls toward the trunk and back toward the sky, steady, patient, exact. Inhale all that was learned. Exhale all that can be forgiven. Somewhere deep in the boughs, a single leaf loosens. Its edge glows faintly, Not fire, not frost, but the color a promise makes before it keeps itself. The leaf drifts, turning slowly the way a coin decides on a side. Down it comes past sleeping birds, past a raven's mild disinterest, past Ratatosker's ceremonious snore, down through cooler air and the sweet smell of bark, until it meets the trunk with a kiss you can only hear, if you have let go of hurry. Where it falls, the bark sighs. The sigh travels the grain like a letter in a vein, and finds the roots without getting lost. Beneath, in old weather, the sigh becomes a ripple across Mimir's well. The well remembers who last asked and what that cost, and sends back, without arithmetic, a portion of itself. Upward the portion climbs, a cupful of deep clarity, into the trunk, into the branches, into the leaf, that has just learned how to fall kindly. All across the crown, other leaves feel it. They do not copy the fall. They copy the kindness. The hum grows warmer. A fox pauses beneath the tree, lifts its narrow face, and forgets to be clever for a breath. On a far shore, a woman adds one more stick to a fire, not because she is cold but because someone might be. A ship at anchor loosens its complaint against the rope, and a man who has been hard on himself for too long decides to nap in the sun and call it work. You could say the tree is generous. The tree would say it is only breathing. Now the dream curls back toward home, as sleep sometimes folds in on itself, to avoid breaking the cup that holds it. The leaves dim by a shade that is not sorrow. A quiet gathers on their skins, a softness like felt. They do not stop remembering. They remember less loudly. Somewhere a distant thunder rolls like an old god turning over, but it does not come closer. The bridges between worlds hang easy, untroubled. The crown of Yggdrasil settles as a choir settles after the last note. Shoulders down, mouths closed, music still visible in the posture. What is left is the aftersound. The warmth in the seat where someone sat and was kind. The light along a wall where mourning will be allowed. The dream has done what dreams are for, burnished what was dull, softened what was rigid, returned what was lost to a place where it can be carried. The wind leaves the crown as it arrived, politely, as if backing out of a quiet room. The stars resume their ordinary courage. One last leaf shivers with the dignity of sleep, and decides not to fall. The tree approves. There are paths in the sky that are not roads, and roads that are not seen. They hang like ribbons of mist between the worlds, woven from breath, belief, and memory. These are the bridges of light, born from Yggdrasil's dreaming veins, the slow songs of sap that become auroras. When the world tree dreams, it does not keep its colors still. It stirs them gently through the dark, so that gods and mortals alike remember how the sky learns kindness. From the crown of Yggdrasil, rivers of brightness pour, green like dawn through water, blue like the inside of a whale's sigh, gold like forgiveness rediscovered after years. They curve across the firmament, and every curve knows where it must go. These are not lines drawn by hands. They are intentions remembered by the air itself. Through one bridge walks a thought of Odin, a shape made of patience and lightning. He does not need to see the bridge. He remembers it. It hums beneath his stride as if pleased to be recalled. Through another bridge drifts a child's wish, half asleep, for a fire that will never hurt anyone again. The light folds itself around the wish like a cradle, and carries it down toward Migr, where a widow will wake warm and not know why. The bridges hum with what they hold. Their tones are low, full of patience. They do not rush travelers. They remember them. Each bridge is a memory of motion, a moment when one world called to another, and the call was answered kindly. Some bridges are narrow, threads of light spun between whispers. Others are wide enough for ships of starlight to pass abreast. But all of them shimmer with the same vow. Nothing true is ever lost between worlds. Beneath the bridges, the dark rolls like calm water. Stars rise slowly through it, as though testing the idea of ascent. On certain nights, when frost leans against window panes, and fire sighs in its sleep, the light bridges dip close enough to brush mortal roofs. If you wake at such a time and do not speak or move, you may hear them humming above your house, a sound between wind and heartbeat. You may dream of walking barefoot into that hum and waking with your hands full of starlight. In the deep of Yggdrasil's dream, the bridges are alive with travelers. Not bodies, echoes, memories, promises. A raven glides along the emerald arc, carrying news no one will write down. A fox made of mist pads along a violet span, nose twitching at wonder. A woman whose voice once held a kingdom walks without weight, her song binding frost to flame. They cross each other without collision, for each carries its own rhythm, and rhythm is respect. Somewhere along the highest bridge, two streams of light meet, hesitate, and blend. The joining births a color the eye cannot name, not because it is strange, but because it is complete. It is the hue of forgiveness accepted, of silence finally understood. The color flows outward, a new thread in the tapestry, and somewhere below, a quarrel ends before it begins. Ratatoskr scurries along a thinner bridge, tail haloed by glow. He chatters with his mouth full of starlight, pretending the bridges need his commentary. In truth, they let him speak because laughter is a kind of bridge too. When he crosses into shadow, the light sighs fondly behind him and resumes its long, slow melody. From the far south, the warmth of Muspelheim rises like a deep drumbeat. Flame dances upward, but not to consume. It bows, gracefully, before the nearest light bridge, and the two exchange gifts. Fire gives warmth, light gives shape. Together they make color, and the color spreads northward, washing the night in gentle embers. In the far north, Niflheim answers with its cool hand. Mist climbs the bridge from the underside, meeting flame in a patient embrace. Steam sighs through the dark like a god remembering his manners. Balance is restored, not forced, but agreed upon, like two old friends sharing bread in silence. The bridges shift and shimmer, breathing in long rhythms. They do not end at the edges of the world. They dissolve into understanding. From Alfheimer to Jotunheimer, from Asgard to the furthest ice, each realm receives its share of the soft glow. No world is forgotten. No heart is left without a path home. For those who dwell in shadow, the bridges bring gentle color, not brightness but invitation. For those who shine too fiercely, the bridges offer calm. Even gods pause upon them, remembering that they, too, were once whispers. High above all, Yggdrasil sleeps on, its trunk steady, its crown luminous. The dream has reached the height of its breathing. Each pulse of sap births another ribbon of aurora, Another bridge of light laid tenderly between loneliness and return. Below, the mortal world stirs. A girl with tired hands sets down her broom, steps outside and looks up. The sky is a river of silk, green, gold, and violet. She does not know its name. She only knows she feels less alone. She raises her palm and finds, to her wonder, that her breath rises to meet the color. For an instant, her exhale and the bridge are the same thing, a thread connecting her to everything that is kind. In a quiet forest, a wolf lifts its head and listens. The sound above is not prey, not danger, only the universe remembering itself. The wolf lowers its head, satisfied, and sleeps. The bridges do not fade. They rest. Each color folds inward, tucking itself like a sleeping child. The hum lessens to a purr, then to a memory. The night resumes its dark serenity, but something in the air remains, a knowledge that even the farthest corners of the world are tied together by mercy. Beneath it all, the world tree breathes again, a breath vast enough to move the stars. The bridges respond, glowing once more, then slowly dimming as if to say, connection endures, even in quiet. The auroras sink below the clouds, their light absorbed by dawn's first patience. And when morning comes, the sky carries a faint echo of their colors, green in the mist, gold in the frost, violet in the dream you will not remember, but will trust all the same. The sky does not always know it is the sky. Sometimes it is only darkness kindly stretched, a blanket laid flat for tired eyes. But when Yggdrasil sleeps, the sky remembers itself. It draws breath, thinks, it listens back. Tonight it listens to leaves. Their green lungs move a tide through the air, and that tide rocks the firmament like a cradle. Clouds loosen their laces. Stars lean down, curious as children who have never seen sleep, and are astonished that the world can survive the closing of an eye. A hush rises from the crown of the tree, an aurora without color, a light that is only relief. The sky takes it in. There is room enough for everything, even for sorrow, even for joy, even for silence. The first voice to wake in the sleeper's sky is small and patient, a northern light the color of forgiveness, arching from bough to bough without need of destination. It hums, not a tune, an approval, promise kept without ceremony. Beneath it the 9 worlds rest like islands on a dark lake. From a great hall in Skar comes a long exhale of mead and memory. From Vanaheimr, the sifting of grain through open hands. From Migr, a child's soft complaint that becomes a laugh, even before a parent answers. Jotunheimr turns in its sleep but does not rise. Its mountains remain gentle in the dark. Alfheimr dreams in silver. Svartalfheimr murmurs to iron the names of stars. Muspelheimr glows like a hearth that refuses no one. Niflheimr condenses into pearls of fog on the night's beard, and hell keeps its cupboards neat, each grief folded flat and labeled with kindness. The sleeper's sky hears them all and is not overwhelmed. It opens wider. It grows quieter. Its silence acquires a texture woven like wool, warm without weight. High above the crown, 2 ravens become ideas of ravens. Their wings are arguments with the wind that end as friendship. Hugin and Munin do not caw. They confer. Their thoughts travel like comets, leaving gentle scars of light. Where their paths cross, A rune appears that means remember, but do not let remembrance become a chain. The rune dissolves into warmth and falls on a widow's pillow. She smiles in her sleep and releases a name that had become a stone. Ratatoskr tries to outshine the stars. He fails and is comforted by the failure. He runs along the bright, seems like a tailor repairing night, stopping to preen, to boast, to nap, his tiny heart the metronome of mischief tamed by kindness. When he sneezes, a constellation reorders itself, to give him more room for dignity. Beneath the sky, frost writes a thin scripture upon bark. The letters mean nothing unless you are very tired. Then they mean rest in every language at once. Yggdrasil breathes deeper. Sap lowers its drum to a slower measure. The sleeper's sky leans down and drinks the rhythm. It becomes a lake without shores. Across that lake moves a ship of silence. No planks, no sail, only hush. Inside it, dreams sit facing inward, knees touching, as if the circle itself were the story. A god with one eye and a scar that cost him everything places his palm on the circle's rim and does not speak. His quiet is an anchor. His breath is a tide. The ship does not need a destination. The lake is already home. At the edge of all edges, where aurora braids with darkness, something ancient listens back. It is not a threat. It is the first shadow that ever asked to learn. The sleeper's sky teaches without words, how to pause, how to widen, how to hold without closing. The shadow practices. It becomes less sharp. It becomes more generous. It becomes a place where even light can rest. Somewhere far below, a hearth breathes its tiny weather in a human house. Bread cools. Boots thaw. A dog sighs and decides to forgive the day. Smoke rises through a hole in the roof and discovers a road of color. It follows the green, then the gold, then the violet, then stops because stopping is also a kind of arriving. The smoke becomes a line on the sky's palm. A fate line. It says, "This house will be easier tomorrow." A fox trots across open snow, leaving calligraphy that melts too quickly to read. The sleeper's sky reads it anyway, because nothing true is wasted. It lowers a bright ribbon, just enough to be seen by a weary shepherd. He thinks it is a sign from someone he loved too sternly. It is. The sign says, "Go home. Take the longer path." It is kinder. He does, and in the bend of that path his anger falls off like an old burr. The sky hears the names of storms and feels no need to summon them. It keeps thunder like a flute in a case. Polished, honored, unused. Lightning sleeps with its head on mist's shoulder. In their dream they invent a softer brightness, one that shows where the door is without burning the house down. The brightness becomes a habit. Windows across the 9 worlds learn how to glow without boasting. In the distance, Muspelheim sends a low drum, not warning participation. Heat rises in syllables the earth understands. Snow does not argue. It becomes water with the dignity of a retired king. The water remembers a fish and gives itself a shape that helps. The fish remembers a boy and swims where the boy will look tomorrow. Compassion travels down the chain like a lantern passing hand to hand. If you could stand where sky becomes not sky, you would feel a pulse under your feet. It is the rhythm of the bridges, yes, but also the expectation of morning. The expectation gathers like breath before a note, filling the sleeper's sky with a readiness that does not jostle. It waits the way snow waits on a branch, balanced, content to be held. The ravens land on a thought and fold themselves into quiet. Ratatoskr curls his tail into an 8, as if blessing eternity with a joke. Far below, Nidhogg rolls once, a continent turning over, and rests his chin against a root as if it were an old friend's boot. The gnawing pauses. The listening does not. Now the sky speaks. Not aloud, not in words. Says this: I am large enough for your yes and your no. I am deep enough for your grief and your hunger. Give me both. I will hold them until they learn manners. Where that speech passes, men whose pride was a bridle take it off and hang it on a peg. Women whose worry was a loom stop weaving the worst cloth. Children, already wise, sigh as if approving what they invented long ago. A thin snow begins, each flake a rune for softness. It writes across helms and hoods, along fences and foreheads. The flakes melt at the same speed as resentment. If you lift your face, you can taste a letter. That means stay and go at once. It means let what must arrive, arrive without you pushing. Let what must leave, leave without you chasing. You are not abandoned. You are accompanied by enough. The sleeper's sky bears the 9 worlds. Like a mother who does not need to prove anything. She does not shush. She models quiet. Even war dreams of a second idea. It wakes as strategy and falls asleep as mercy. Near dawn, though near has no meaning up here, the auroras think of folding. They do it the way a singer closes a lullaby, not stopping, completing. Color becomes breath. Breath becomes cool. Cool becomes a clarity so mild the eye mistakes it for nothing. It is not nothing. It is the room in which something gentle will grow. Yggdrasil turns one ring deeper into sleep. The bark releases a long-held sigh. In halls the high and low will share again tomorrow. Candles dream of being dawn, and are not offended when dawn arrives first. The ravens become birds again. Ratatoskr pretends he never tried to be a star. Nidhogg's teeth return to their work. But we hear it now as the shuffling of an old library. Order maintained, not malice performed. Beneath this sky, someone forgives a small debt and feels taller. Someone ties a rope with less fear in the knot. Someone who had been angry at winter finds a way to thank it. For teaching bones to sing quietly. The sleeper sky has done its work. It remains calm, capacious, exact, as if an enormous hand had smoothed the quilt, and stepped away without waking the sleeper. If you open your window to it and say nothing, you will hear your own breath come back to you, returned by a sky that knows your name, and is in no hurry to say it. Dawn is not required, but it will come as it always does, not to end the night, only to translate it. Beneath the crown's sleeping light and the sky that has learned to hold, the world settles into a deeper chamber. Down past the rings of years and the braided corridors of sap, past the old thunder kept like coins in bark, the roots of Yggdrasil enter a country without weather. Here the ground is not soil but memory, packed layers of breath and sorrow, crushed lullabies, soft garments folded by hands that no longer ache. The roots thread this country like gentle stitches, mending distances that time thought permanent. Listen. The first sound is a drop of water finding its certainty. It falls from stone to stone, inventing a rhythm older than speech. Around that rhythm lies Mimir's well dark, absolute, a mirror that does not reflect faces so much as their weight, keeps what the world would lose and returns it when the hands are ready. Tonight the well is generous. A root descends slow as mercy. Its fibers open like fingers learning trust. They touch the surface. The water opens in a circle not disturbed, only wider. From the circle rises a coolness like forgiveness pronounced without witness. The root drinks. What it carries upward is not wetness but remembering. Names that once burned, now gentled. Promises that failed, now useful as warnings. Joys that had no language, now allowed to remain unnamed. The remembering enters the great trunk, and the trunk changes its mind about something it was holding too tightly. Above, a branch shifts the width of a thought. Somewhere in Migger, a coral loosens before it hatches teeth. Deeper still, another root finds a stone that hums. The stone has been singing for centuries, too quietly for anyone in a hurry. The song says, "What was lost became part of what holds." Says, "The break did not break the whole." The root rests its weight upon that song and receives strength without pride. NHGGR is here too, not as terror but as weather, a long body like a black river, a patience that has learned manners. His teeth are the clock that keeps nothing cruel. He gnaws the farthest, thickest root, and in the gnawing, story becomes ring, and ring becomes endurance. Tonight he pauses more often, listening. He leans his jaw against the wood as a dog leans against a friend's boot. Even hunger can be companioned by a greater rhythm. Between the roots are pockets of gentle dark. They are rooms with no walls, made of permission. If you enter one in a dream, it does not demand your name. It lets you put down what is too heavy to carry awake. Griefs lie there like cooled iron, not gone but safe to touch. When you leave, they do not follow unless you invite them. This is one of the tree's quiet miracles. It does not exile what hurt you. It gives it better work to do. Near the well, a bed of moss breathes. Its green is the color of rebeginnings. On it rests a sword that will never be lifted again, its edge dressed in sleep. A root curls around the hilt without fear. Metal remembers blood, and then remembers rain, and then remembers only reflection. The root hums, "Thank you for your service. Rest now." The sword does not answer. It does not need to. The silence is a clean room in the house of the world. A whisper travels along the capillaries of wood. It is the gossip of kindness. Someone in Scar left the good cup for a stranger. Someone in Vanaheimr sang a field awake with the right song. In Jotunheimer, a hand large enough to crush a house chose to mend a fence instead. The root country records these things without ceremony. They become part of the ground. When a child someday runs barefoot, that child will be steadied by them, without knowing why the earth feels kinder. Mimir's eye opens, not to judge but to witness and make real. He does not speak. His seeing is a form of water. It takes the shape of what it receives, and makes it clearer. Where the gaze rests, a knot in a root loosens. Where it lingers, a tangle in a heart above ground learns a better way to lie still. Ratatoskr arrives in the underquiet as if entering a closed library. He tiptoes for 5 seconds and then forgets himself and chatters. Immediately he remembers himself and puts a paw over his mouth, wide-eyed. The roots accept this attempt as the purest courtesy. He delivers no insult tonight. He delivers a crumb of bread, stolen from a god's plate and meant as an apology to everything. A root accepts it exactly as a root accepts rain. The squirrel feels important in an unhurtful way. This is how the world grows gentler, not by scolding laughter, but by tutoring it. Along a lesser root, a small tremor moves like a shy animal. It carries a cradle song once sung beside a door that no longer stands. The song has learned to walk without a house, curls around the root and is kept. Above, when the wind crosses a certain meadow, the grass will imitate that rhythm and a tired mother will rest deeper. She will think it was the weather. She will be right. Deep past naming, the roots keep a ledger of unreturned mercies. It is not a book. It is a warmth that gathers around the ankles of memory. When the sun grows bright enough, it travels upward, arriving in the world as a pause before anger, as a path that returns you to your own threshold before your pride wanders too far. Tonight, a portion of that warmth rises. It enters the trunk as a low chord. The chord spreads into the crown. A door that was closing somewhere decides to wait. A sentence that would have wounded shortens by half and then becomes a nod. The dragon stirs again. Annoyed by a dream he will not admit is kind. His tail scrapes stone. Sparks like blind fireflies rise and die without smoke. He mouths the great root with less argument. Somewhere far above, a child who feared his own temper learns to bite bread instead of his tongue, and then later learns to bite nothing at all. At the well's edge, a woman sits made of nothing but tone. She has been waiting since someone forgot what to sing. She hums a single note, thin, exact, unashamed. The roots drink it as bees drink dawn. It is not beautiful because it is skilled. It is beautiful because it keeps going. The note travels outward through wood, through earth up into bark, and enters a house where an old man has outlived his sleep. He hears it, smiles, and lets the night finish what it started. In the morning he will not brag that he learned peace. He will slice bread wider. The ground here smells of stone and consent. Time is granular, like sugar spilled and lovingly gathered. When the roots move, they do so by reconsidering. When they rest by staying. They are theologians of enough. A small crack opens in a place that never cracks. It is not harm. It is an invitation. Through it, a thread of starlight drifts. A bridge arriving late and welcome. The light does not rush. It drapes itself across a root as silk across a shoulder. In its glow, carvings appear. Rings counting years, scars telling weather. A childish glyph someone once pressed into bark and later forgot. The light reads without speaking and closes the crack behind it as one closes a book. With care for the spine, NHGGR lifts his head and, for the first time tonight, speaks. Not aloud, but with the heaviness of rivers. Hold me, says the dragon to the tree he has always opposed. He means, let me be part of this usefulness. The great root offers its width. He rests his jaw upon it and sleeps. When morning retells this, it will call the dragon cruel again. Morning is not always a good historian. The roots are. Now the remembering gathers itself into a shape like weather preparing to change. The well ripples. The stone sings its one note. The moss breathes. The sword forgets the story it was sharpened for. The crumbs on Ratatosker's whiskers become a sacrament that no temple will claim. All of it pours into the roots and climbs. It climbs with the certainty of rivers, and the slowness of justice done well. Above, the trunk receives and does not spill. The crown glows on its hidden side. The side birds see when they have finally forgiven the air for being everywhere. Across the 9 worlds, doors open inward before hands reach them. A traveler finds a bed still warm from a friend who left it for her on purpose. A letter is written simpler than pride would have allowed yesterday. A warrior takes off a ring of iron and discovers a wrist. The root that remembers rests, work done but never finished. It hums the world flatter and kinder, pressing down the mountains of hurry, lifting the valleys of shame. Keeps the ledger, but it does not collect. It simply ensures that what was carried alone is now borne by wood and water and the long patience of stone. If you sleep with your ear to the ground, you will hear it, the slow archive of kindnesses, the shuffle of heavy stories changing shelves, the small laughter of a squirrel learning reverence. You will not need to translate. Your breath will lengthen. Your hands will forget to clench. And when you wake, something you did not know you were guarding will have learned how to be guarded without you. The well grows calm again. The drop finds its stone and keeps it. NHGGRS breath deepens. The roots loosen their fingers and hold more securely for having done so. Yggdrasil, the ash that binds, shifts by the width of a blessing. In the country without weather, night continues, not empty, not dark, but exact. The remembering rests like a book closed between readings, confident that the reader will return, and that the story will have added pages while no one watched. There is no bell for dawn in the land of roots and dreams. The waking begins quietly, a single thread of light unspooling from a leaf, sliding down bark, curling through wood, and finding soil. The roots feel it first. They do not stir, they remember how to move. The memory becomes motion, and motion becomes song. From the farthest reaches of shadow, a long breath exhales, the sound of the world deciding to open its eyes again. Yggdrasil wakes without hurry. The dream is not broken. It is invited to stand. The trunk draws in the deep wisdom of the night. All that was forgiven, all that was laid down, all that was understood. The crown answers with the hush of 1,000 leaves, greeting the first warmth. Light passes through the tree like a thought through kindness. Above, the sleeper's sky turns pale blue, the last auroras dissolving into memory. Birds begin to call, tentative, unsure if sound will work again. When it does, their voices scatter upward, each one a spark of continuation. Ratatoskr yawns loudly enough to impress the silence. The ravens return from thought to feather, shaking dew from their wings as if rinsing off philosophy. Deep below, NHGGR stretches. He does not gnaw. He opens his eyes to the color of dawn filtered through root water, and for a moment he is simply still. The well of Mimir brightens like an old coin kissed by sun. The surface ripples once, then stills, showing nothing because nothing is being asked of it yet. The first wind of day moves through the crown. It is careful not to wake too quickly. It brushes each leaf the way a parent checks each room before leaving. The leaves answer with soft applause. They do not remember their dreams word for word, but they remember the piece of them, and that is enough. Across the 9 realms, the waking continues, slowly like a thought choosing gentleness over speed. In Scar, a god's cup refills itself with patience. In Vanaheimr, a field bends under the weight of new seed. In Jotunheimr, frost cracks open to show a tiny green stem, and a giant grins privately at the small defiance of it. In Migr, a fisherman opens his hands before casting the net, and for the first time in years, thanks the river aloud. Everywhere small awakenings. The bridges of light thin but do not vanish. They rest in the air like music left open on the page. The sleeper sky folds its vastness into a single, kind blue, and the auroras sigh themselves into clouds. Yggdrasil opens its eyes. Not two, but countless, for every drop of sap, every ring of bark, every fiber sees. It looks upon creation not as a judge, not as a god, but as a mother returning from dream, making sure all her children are still breathing. They are. The light that streams down through its leaves, touches sea and sand, stone and heart, and whispers, continue. Not command, not plea, simply permission. The world obeys, but gently. Rivers run. Mountains reconsider their edges. A fox wakes with snow on its back and decides to keep it as a coat. Somewhere a child murmurs the name of a story she does not know she knows. She will tell it tonight by candlelight, and the candle will listen. Yggdrasil stands taller by a thought. Its branches hum, its roots hum back. Between them is a silence so vast and kind, that all sound grows from it like flowers from thawed soil. There is no end to the dream. There is only a turning, night to morning, sleep to seeing, breath to word. The worlds remain where they were, but lighter now, as if gravity has remembered its gentleness. And in that quiet between dreams and day, a voice like leaf touch, like snowfall, like time exhaling, says, "You are still held."